Vivek Ramaswamy, former 2024 Republican presidential candidate, saw him in court on Tuesday. Vivek, you say this might be a setup. Why?
Yeah, I believe it is a setup, Laura, and here's how it's working. Why did Biden pull this 180 all of a sudden, and why did the Democrats let him do it? Let's put together some facts here. On one hand, CNN is hosting it. They're going to prop up Biden, try to make him look as good as possible. But also note, this is the earliest ever presidential debate in recorded American history, in June. Why is that? This is a Hail Mary attempt for Biden as his numbers are tanking. This is their last chance to give him a desperate attempt to succeed. And if he doesn't, as I expect will be the case, that gives them enough time to swap out somebody else for the nomination. That's what's going on. Set him up for the best possible look you can give him. It's not a neutral forum. It's CNN. Do the 180 as he's tanking. But if he fails, they have enough time to prop up a new puppet. That's what I think is going on.
So Biden is his own trial balloon. He's been around for like 50 years, and they're still auditioning him. That's pretty funny.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Rescue Michigan weekly live stream. I'm your host, Adam D'Angeli, and joining us tonight on stream, we have State Committee member, attorney, witness in the Kristina Karamo case, Maggie Kurzweil. Welcome to the show, Maggie. Good to have you back on once again. Richard says, hope you all had a good weekend. As you guys might be able to see from the sawdust on my t-shirt, I have had a good weekend. So how are you doing, Maggie? Good to see you back on the show again.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation, Adam. It's always wonderful to debate with you and share what we each know. You're just a great source of information, and I enjoy the intellectual gymnastics. I really do.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And we're going to have some fun tonight because there has been some big news in the trial of Kristina Karamo. And of course, we actually last week did a reenactment of some parts of the hearing based upon the transcript. We were not able to get into the courtroom with the video camera, but we did get the transcript. So we were doing some reenacting of that this past weekend and had some fun with that. We might do some more of that soon. But first, there has been a huge development in the case, which I saw very, very little news coverage of, although there was this short hit in this Bridge, Michigan, very short, not even a whole article about it, but just that Karamo has lost the fight for the Michigan GOP again. Here, I'll zoom in on it. The court case that forced a pivotal change in the Michigan Republican Party leadership effectively ended this week, although an attorney representing ousted Chair Kristina Karamo said they are considering an appeal. Okay, good luck with that. The judge granted summary disposition in a lawsuit that already had forced Karamo out because they, of course, lost the preliminary injunction months ago. And, of course, that was the hearing that you were a witness in. But we wanted to have you on because that's pretty much all we've heard, that the case is over, that, and, of course, the plaintiff in the suit technically was Melinda Pago, who at the time was the acting chairman of the party. This was before Pete Hoekstra became chair that was filed. Some other members of the party were listed as co-plaintiffs. I think some of the vice chairs were there. Anyway, this was like the big lawsuit that was going to determine who the chair of the party actually was. And now it's over. So you were involved in this case, so maybe you can give us more information. What exactly happened this week? Where are we now? The case is over, but, well, fill us in. Like, what's the story here? First of all, what happened in court? What did the judge say?
Well, I think what's important, Adam, is to look at the sequence of events beginning last fall and see how Kristina and her people, her loyalists, her GOP disruptors, whatever you want to call them, have been on the losing side. And they lost on January 6th. There was a vote by state committee members. 88.8% of those state committee members that were present voted to remove her. If she had any common sense at that time, she should have understood the vote of no confidence, that she was out, she was done, graciously thank people for their time, thank the people that stood with her, and move on. But that's not what she did. She continued the fight, which clearly opened up the discussion that is she really committed to the Republican Party? Because that has been an issue that has been percolating underneath some of the issues with Kristina Karamo. What is her real loyalty to the Michigan GOP? You know, some individuals like the leader, GOP leader in Florida that was removed, he walked away graciously, said, okay, I'm not here anymore. But Kristina fought it. So you have to ask yourself, was it her ego, or was there some other plan in place to continue to tear down the GOP so that we would not be in a position to start on a presidential election? So she didn't go graciously. Hence, we had to do the preliminary injunction. And the preliminary injunction was extremely detailed. It provided every single process that was used to move Kristina out of office, which was guided by the bylaws. The bylaws are very well written. You may disagree with how they were interpreted by the grassroots individuals that moved to remove her, by the judge that granted the motion. But the bylaws, in most instances, are not ambiguous. They are very clear, and it was very easy to see what the blueprint was to get her removed. And it was easy for the judge to rule because he could read the bylaws just as good as anybody else. And he could see that the path that the grassroots had taken to remove Kristina was up and up. They threaded that needle very carefully. At one point, there were, I believe, 6 attorneys that were involved in the background, working on assisting the grassroots on certain decisions that they were making. And they were very conservative and cautious. I don't think anybody in this process jumped out of line or took a risk that wouldn't stand up in court. So you now have the temporary injunction. And that was interesting because, yes, I testified. I was a witness there. And my testimony was related to how people, we found out who were people in good standing.
And just to interject something here, because I want to make this very clear for our audience. This preliminary injunction hearing was 3 days of witness testimony. So here's the transcript from page 1 at volume 1 of 3. And this is 3 full days. So something like 12 plus hours of the court very carefully going through all these details. This is not just something that, because this is one thing that I belabor this because the Karamo people keep saying they didn't give us a fair shake, et cetera, et cetera. And for the first 2 days, they didn't even call a single witness. The first day was the plaintiff's witnesses, which still had more time spent on cross from the opposing counsel. And then the third day, again, you now finally have some defense witnesses. Actually, this is page 2. So day 2, and here's you here. And again, this is still plaintiff's witnesses, but the defense taking more time on cross. And then finally on day 3, they call in a couple of people. They call, I think, is it Angela Gillespie? I'm not sure how you pronounce her last name. Mm-hmm. And even then they took more time. So they got plenty of time. And this was not like just a quick summary. According to them, this judge was bought and paid for by the secret establishment and the globalists and the WF and yada, yada, yada. But no, it was actually very, very deliberative. And they went through every detail of these things.
Well, and I think that is why John Lauterbach and Warner Norcross were so successful, because it was all in the details. Everything was in the details. John and Troy, that legal team really, really understood the critical details of moving the removal of her on January 6th into a temporary injunction. So They were masterful and brilliant at what they did. And I was quite frankly shocked at the lack of understanding that Karamo's attorney had of some of the very basic facts. Some of the very basic facts. I get it. You know, he wasn't new to the process. I think he was brought in at an 11th hour. It's not like he spent his life in Republican politics and understood a lot of this. In fact, when you do a FEC search into the law firm that Kristina hired, you'll find out that about 98% of the lawyers contribute to the Democratic Party. So she hired a Democrat basically to represent her in this case.
Imagine my shock. Wonder why
Imagine, like we were all surprised to learn that Kristina hired a Democratic law firm. Now, Mr. Campbell may disagree and say, well, we do contribute to Republicans once in a while. Well, Mr. Campbell, I challenge you to look at your FEC filing because there's a lot of Act Blue in there. And that's probably why when he asked me on the witness stand, what is Win Red? That was my clue right there. You understand Act Blue, but you didn't know what Win Red was.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, that was interesting. And I think he was surprised. He and I got along very professionally on the witness stand. He was very cordial to me. I was very cordial to him. But I knew half of what I was testifying to. I didn't even have to look into the book because I knew it. I knew what was in the book. I knew the receipts that had been received, the people that had been paid. And nobody prepped me, but I knew this. So it's not like John Lauterbach sat in a room for 14 hours and said, you need to say this, you need to say that. I didn't need any prepping. I mean, I knew the information and the facts probably better than anybody that was there for the subject matter that I was testifying on.
Yeah, my favorite moment in that entire exchange was when you and him have been going back and forth for quite some time. And then near the end here, we've got this line. Here, I'll read up. I'll move up a little bit, and we're going back and forth here. And he says, "You just told me that a regular member couldn't vote, but it's all rights and privileges that are suspended, correct?" And you say, "Right. Well, how are you?" My question is, how do you define it? Because you're trying to get to him because he's not answering. He's not asking an intelligent question.
That's right.
And
That's
you're
right.
like, "What are you asking here?" And he's like, he's like, "I'm the one that's supposed to be asking the questions here." So then he says, "Here, you are a witness, correct?" And you go, "Correct." He says, "That's not a problem. I'm just asking. I'm not bothered by it. I'm just going to do what a lawyer does." And you're like, you're doing a good job, Mr. Campbell.
Yeah.
That was at the very end. That was brutal.
I mean, and people were laughing in the courtroom, because they realized, I think, that he was outgamed. He was outfact. He was outgamed. He was outsmarted.
Well, they probably went into this with expecting Dan Hartman was going to be their lawyer, and then realizing, oh wait, he can't be. He's our witness.
Yeah.
So they hire somebody. They go to this law firm. They have, I think, there's another woman who's also one of their attorneys who's also involved in the Kalamazoo case. There's him and this other guy, and then the week after, when they have this third day of a hearing, they have another guy come in and it's like, every time you bring a lawyer in, they have to research the entire history of the case to know what the heck they're talking about. This has to cost a lot of money to get all these different attorneys in. And
the other thing too is that it was very clear to me. I can only tell you for me when I was on the witness stand, when and I have to say, Mr. Campbell was very professional to me. We had a very cordial relationship on the witness stand. There were a couple of smiles and laughs, during my testimony.
Mm-hmm.
But I could tell when he asked me, it was, well, where did you find this information, this financial information? Well, FEC statements and, state reports. And his comment was, oh, so you were sleuthing. That he looked at me and he knew he was in trouble because his client may not have told him everything he needed to go forward. And that was a look that I will never forget when he looked at me and said, oh, so you were sleuthing. And I think I responded and said, yes. That's when I knew that he clearly did not have the appropriate information to even go into this hearing. And I'm not going to lay blame on him as the attorney. The problem was the client, Kristina Karamo, and those around her were the ones that were sealing information, concealing it, not telling the truth, exaggerating. And that's what happens, because the people that prepare the attorney are the clients. And here you have an attorney that really didn't know much about anything in this private political party. And he was totally and 100% dependent upon Kristina Karamo developing the facts to assist him win that TRO. He couldn't do it.
Yeah.
He couldn't do it.
It's like in that movie Primal Fear, where the lawyer has a very bad day in court. He's a defense attorney. And then he goes back to his client. He's like, do you understand? I'm here to help you, and I can't help you effectively if you lie to me. If you don't give me the whole story, I can't prepare for what's coming because you haven't given me the correct information. So here's the passage, by the way, for those who are curious. And so here's where the attorney, Don Campbell, says, I'm sorry, all the things that I've identified, am I correct that they're in there? And you say, yes. And he says, so there's hearsay in the document, right? You'll see someone with credentials. You don't think that's hearsay? And you say, well, I mean, if you want to object to it, you object to it. I mean, you just said, and he says, well, I've got to know if it's in there first. I was told that it was internet sleuthing. No, it turns out that it was internet sleuthing plus your personal observations plus folks you talked to. And you're like, no, Kristen's document. And by the way, for the context of this is they have been trying to attack the validity of these 4 members of the state party, claiming that they didn't pay their dues and therefore their petitions can't be counted, including Hema Kalanigareddy, who gave him $1,000. And they're like, hey, she's paid $1,000 to the party. Doesn't that count as dues? And the guy's like, well, this is Dan Hartman arguing, no, those don't really count as dues because I didn't know that they were, I mean, that could be a donation. It doesn't have to count as dues. And it's like, well, the bylaws don't say it has to be earmarked as membership dues. If you make a payment, it counts. You know, as long as they make a donation, it counts. And they go through this with, here's they're talking about Kristen, but they go through the same thing with Sue Aller and this other person. And it's all just like, it's just like they're grasping. They can't imagine that all of you guys got together and would allow something like a dues violation, you know, trip them up.
Well, and that's an interesting point that you bring up on the issue of the dues, because that came up in a later filing in, I believe that was on either May 17th or May 19th. So I think it was pretty clear. I was a witness, so I was not allowed to be in the courtroom while other testimony was going on. And so we were sequestered, and I walked up and down the hallways in the courtroom, and that was it. I think at one point I sat in a room by myself. So, you know, so I did not personally hear testimony from the other witnesses. I've since then have had an opportunity to listen and read some of the transcripts of some of them. But what's interesting, I think, is that the testimony, I think, was clear enough that I don't see how the judge could not have ruled, number one, because it was all very well laid out. And for those, you know, disruptors who want to make the argument that the judge was bought and paid for because somebody in the Warner Norcross law firm made a contribution to this judge back in 2010, these people are just grasping for any argument to justify why they lost. And they need to be really careful about this because, first of all, they don't understand the system. You know, the Karamo people are low information individuals. And by low information, I mean they are drawn to a narrative and it's not the information that's important to them. They don't care about going out and searching whether or not Kristina's telling them the truth. They're just low information people. And low information doesn't understand that nobody picked this judge. When you
Yeah.
file a lawsuit, you go into a random pool.
Right.
And the
Yeah.
clerk, somebody in the court system, picked Judge Rossi. Nobody
Oh,
from the,
they're globalists too, of course. I mean, and you say low information. I think what it is it's an emotional, psychological investment in a narrative. And once you have that, you filter out and you ignore and disregard anything that contradicts that theory, that narrative. Which I think is what it is. So they hear these things I remember, I forget where I saw it exactly, but it was somewhere in, I don't think it was in the transcript, but it was in one of their arguments they were going through on the emails, where it was like plain as day reading the bylaws, where what the people that removed Kristina were doing was proper, and they read the bylaws and they read them incorrectly. Like they are literally citing them and reading them wrong. Like the issue about how you establish a quorum and proxies and stuff like that. It's like the bylaws clearly say they did exactly what they had to do to A, establish quorum, and then B, get a vote. And they cite this, and they still can't connect A to B because their mental filter is like, no, this can't be. This can't be. It's the way that they say it is, which is that this doesn't apply because of some unspecified. It doesn't make sense because people don't think rationally when they're emotionally invested. They're thinking emotionally, and then they rationalize to suit their conclusion. I think that's how that works.
And I think you bring up a very, very important point, because through this whole process of removing Karamo and Hartman, I did not see a whole lot of, quote, high level emotion where people were driven at all costs to get a result. What I saw were people that were being very careful, very deliberate, very methodical, very analytical, very double checking. And if we get the result, we get the result. I think there was a plan B out there somewhere. What happens if we don't get the votes? What happens if we don't get the petitions? So I don't think anybody went into this, at least the people that I know that went into this, that were willing to compromise their ethics and their moral backbone to get a result. And I think that is the key difference between the grassroots movement that removed Karamo and the grassroots people that are still fighting this, is that there is a level of maturity that is far more developed and intellectual than those that are being left behind.
Yep, I completely agree. Another way I've heard this expressed, I forget who said this, but I saw this someplace on X or Twitter. Someone made the point, a good way to tell when someone's brainwashed is that they cannot express the opposing view. They cannot articulate the opposing view. Like you and I can easily articulate the point of view of the Karamo people. He was a grassroots patriot who was opposed to the status quo, and the corrupt establishment didn't want to have her elected, but she got elected, and they were stopped at nothing to destroy her. And that's what this has been all about from day one, is people who don't support Kristina are bought and paid for. They're globalists or Democrats or whatever it is, but they don't like that they're not in control anymore. The establishment's, I mean, that's us articulating what they're thinking. But ask them to articulate why we want Kristina removed. You'll never hear any of them say, well, because people had a problem with, because she couldn't raise money, because she was making incendiary remarks in the newspaper, because she was deliberately turning donors away, because she was deliberately ill. And the reason why they can't say this is because they can't think it, because it's painful for them to think this way, because it challenges it hurts their narrative. So they have to block all that out, and they can't articulate it because it would make them self-destruct psychologically, which is why that's the way that goes. All right. Anyway, so I want to move on because, okay, that was all the injunction hearing. So now what happened last week? We now have the injunction hearing. There's going to be a trial scheduled, but the trial's called off. So what happened last week?
Well, remember, so now the temporary injunction gets entered, and now starts the discovery process. So now you have depositions being taken during April, during May, and late April comes the first filing of a motion for summary disposition. And contrary to the removed general counsel, Dan Hartman, who believes that a motion for summary disposition is rarely used, is rarely filed. Anytime you have a trial, most attorneys will file a motion for summary disposition because that gives you an opportunity to test the waters, to see whether or not there actually is a factual issue of dispute that should go forward to a jury. So it's a very standard practice. And for Hartman to come out and even say that, it just tells me that he is part of the machine that just keeps the low information people around Karamo low information. That's not how good attorneys work. They file a motion for summary disposition. So that's what the law firm did. They filed a motion for summary disposition. I must have read it 3 or 4 times. It was brilliantly drafted. And the reason it was brilliantly drafted is because it goes back to the masterful maneuvers that Lauterbach had at the hearing for the temporary injunction. He stuck to the facts. He stuck to what he could produce as evidence. He stuck to what people said in depositions. And he stuck to the fine points. He didn't go off on these deep state theories and oh, but I have more here, and I'm clinging on to this, and I got clinging on to that. Lauterbach looked at it very factually, and I'll tell you this right now: if he felt that motion should not have been filed, he probably wouldn't have filed it. I've been in that position. I've said, you know what? There's too many facts here. We're going to get this motion shot down. There's just too many out here. Nothing. For example, I'll just give an example. On me, they could not counter. You would think that would be one of the key things they would do, is counter what Maggie said on the witness stand, her exhibit that she put together on the dues, and counter that. They couldn't even do that. They couldn't even do that. And when that was a critical component to getting the temporary restraining order entered and moving forward with the motion for summary disposition. But what's very interesting about the motion for summary disposition is that it was filed, I think, in late April, and then a supplementary was filed on, I believe, May 17th, maybe a week before the hearing, a supplementary. And the supplementary included, guess who? Jennifer Stanifer's deposition. Now, this is why I think the Kristina people need to understand that you got to be careful who you listen to. And you have to develop critical skills, because Jennifer Stanifer signed an affidavit under oath stating that certain individuals had not paid their dues. And therefore, since they hadn't paid their dues, they weren't eligible to vote. And Kristina, therefore, was not removed. Well, Jennifer Stanifer gets in her deposition. And take a guess what she admits.
She didn't pay her own dues.
No. Well, okay. I don't think she did. But
all right.
But she admits.
That was my guess.
She admits that Kristen Lee had paid her dues.
Oh, well, one of the people that was challenged on the dues issue. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, she admits that Sue Ellen.
She lied under oath.
She lied under oath.
Oops. Whoopsie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now
this is the real world, guys. Don't do these things.
Yeah. And she even admits, she says, well, Steve Cloutier, he's not paid. Steve Cloutier, she thought he was paid, had not paid his dues. She thought he was a member all of 2003. When you read her deposition, you realize this woman was completely clueless. And you have to ask yourself, if you believe that Kristina was put in place to take down the Michigan Republican Party burn it down, as she said. Then Jennifer Standifer played a very important role because they hired somebody who did not know what they were doing. So she was there to cause the crinks without her even maybe knowing. I don't know if Jennifer completely understood what her role was, but they clearly didn't want anybody in that role that knew what they were doing. She did not even know about Steve Clordier.
Because I kind of see this person who'd be like, and we saw this pattern of people coming and going as finance chair is because smart people were like, this might be dangerous for me personally. I don't want to have anything to do with this. And then they'd run away screaming. And so they end up with people who had no clue what they were doing. So real quick, I'm going to go back for a second so our audience is clear about this. So first we have this preliminary injunction hearing, which is basically where you're getting the judge to issue a decision before there's been a trial, but based upon, the judge has to go through and say, okay, well, given the facts that can be brought in front of me, but then there's also questions of what's the relative harm if I put this injunction out versus if I don't to either party and so forth. Then there's this motion for summary disposition, which essentially is again saying, let's resolve the case here and now before you go to trial. So again, for the not legally minded folks watching, the reason why you have to have a trial is because you have to have a finding of a fact of the facts. In a criminal trial, that's the jury's job. In a civil trial, that can be a judge or a jury, depending on the circumstances. But that's when there's disputations of facts. So in a motion for summary judgment, correct me if I'm wrong here, but basically the idea is the court says both parties have put all the facts on the table and there's no real disputation of the facts that needs to be sorted out at a trial. So based upon where things are at this point, we've got all the things we need to make a decision. Is that basically what happens here?
Yeah. And why waste the court's time and drag all these witnesses in for a week of trial when it's pretty clear where we're at? And the judge would not have, and once again, you got to go back to the temporary hearing because the witnesses that were there were so fact specific. They had the details to make sure that the judge could understand the case and understand exactly an application of the bylaws. So if it says that you have to be a dues paying member, then how was that determined? He looked at it all. He understood that. So what new would Hartman bring to the table? Oh, by the way, there was a change of attorneys.
Yeah, I was going to say, I remember there was some story floating around last week that Dan Hartman had some kind of new bombshell that was going to change the outcome of everything, but that clearly did not happen. Because
this is before that. The question is why is Dan Hartman your lawyer? Well, Dan Hartman, what happened was Kristina's original attorney filed a motion to withdraw as counsel for the defendants, and
Hartman?
Pardon?
Hartman filed to withdraw.
Campbell filed to withdraw.
Okay. So, let's go over these again for people that might not be as familiar with these folks. So Dan Hartman was the general counsel for the state party who filed the lawsuit against Comerica Bank, who was going to be her lawyer in this case, but couldn't be because he's a witness.
Right.
Don Campbell is the attorney who was working for Karamo, the defendant, in the injunction hearing on the date that you were testifying and the day before that, but not the week after for some reason. So Campbell is now withdrawing himself from the case.
Right.
Okay.
He withdraws, but there's no real specifics. So, so from a lawyer standpoint, one or two reasons why a lawyer withdraws or wants to get out of a case. Number one, they're not getting paid. But in most instances, a judge usually says, you know what? You got yourself into it. If you didn't ask for a retainer, a good enough retainer up front or security up front, I'm not going to let you out of this now and throw my trial schedule off. You're kind of in this, for the long haul.
Yeah.
Unless
so they usually say, I have disagreement with my client, Your Honor, on strategy. So it's not reconcilable. I have to leave. Is that
personally, I think that's probably what happened. I have a feeling that after the temporary preliminary injunction was entered, or the preliminary injunction was entered, I think he sat down with Kristina and said, you know what? You didn't tell me about this. You didn't tell me about that. You know, I asked you about this and you didn't give me that answer. And shut up, you know, Dan Hartman, because you're not really who I'm listening to right now. And said, this is what I suggest that you do. I suggest that you come to the table and mediate this with Mr. Hoekstra, find a gracious way out. And I think her minions around her said, we're fighting this to the tooth. And I think that's when Dan Campbell said, you know what? This is not in your best interest. I need to go. I'm not your lawyer anymore. And that's when Dan Hartman now steps in to be the lawyer for Kristina. So that's how that
so Hartman is now her lawyer again in this case.
Yeah.
This past week. Okay. So was there any bombshell, or I mean, obviously there was no bombshell. There was no nothing. Well,
so now the motion for summary disposition is now being heard. And Friday was the hearing. I think it lasted for about maybe an hour and a half, maybe an hour and 45 minutes. And what's interesting about that is that it was done on a Zoom call, or was done electronically. And Hartman was not connected to the internet like you and I are. Hartman apparently was connected to a cell phone. So he would every once in a while say, oh, you know what? I lost my 5 bars. I don't know what you guys are saying. Oh, you know what? My connection's real bad. I can't hear. Oh, you know what? I have more arguments I need to make, but I don't know. I don't seem to be real connected, blah, blah, blah. So it was another stall tactic that Hartman was using, possibly inferring that he had new arguments to bring forward. And the judge said, you know what? I
understand.
I get it, Mr. Hartman. We'll set this up for a final hearing on Wednesday in person. You need to be here. So now Dan Hartman doesn't have a way out at all. He has to show up. Yeah. So the court starts, I think, almost on time, maybe a couple minutes after, and gives Dan Hartman pretty much free reign. It was the Dan Hartman losing show. Yeah, I mean, it was what we've all been seeing for over a year. You know, it's Dan Hartman at his best, being a loser, being a buffoon, being somebody who doesn't know the facts, you know, presenting documents.
I gotta get those transcripts now.
Handing documents to the judge when you got to read this. You know, Dan, you don't even know how to act appropriately in a courtroom at all. What an embarrassment you are to Kristina and everybody else that was relying on you to go in and charge through and stop this motion for summary disposition. So Hartman gets done with his presentation, and the judge takes a break and says, hey, I'll be back in a couple minutes with my opinion. And he comes out and he says, I'm granting the motion, and this is why. And I think he spent about maybe 45 minutes on the record. Once again, a very, very methodical, careful decision that he made. And clearly, Kristina and the traveling circus were provided every opportunity, both on Friday when Hartman was claiming that, I think at one point on Friday, Hartman wanted to know if somebody was interfering with his telecommunications. You know, to me, that just tells me that this guy's out in alien world. Yeah. Out in alien world.
They claimed at that meeting in December. It was clearly a conspiracy to sabotage the Karamo meeting with the threat of terrorism, that blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Well, at the state committee meeting, Sabrina Pritchard makes the argument on one of her posts, on one of her social media posts, that she tried to video record the vote regarding Lori Skibo, and everybody else was able to get an accurate video record except for Sabrina, and that her video was possibly being interfered with, just hers. And that's what prompted the meme on Telegram of a spaceship launching her down on Earth. I mean, it's hysterical. These people are nothing but entertainment. So so that's where we're at on that.
They are entertaining, although they're also threatening. I do want to at some point transition to this, but before we get to that stuff, though, I also want to because the other thing you mentioned was that there were some depositions, and I guess that does happen between an injunction and a motion for summary disposition. So that means that Kristina certainly, I'm sure, had a deposition. I wonder who else did. And I might just tell us whatever you know about what's been going on with because Kristina never testified at the injunction hearing. They never called her. But what happened? Was she ever interviewed?
Well, we know that I've seen the deposition of Bree's deposition.
Okay.
Dan Hartman was unable to challenge anything that Bree said. Dan came off as a complete incompetent in Bree's testimony. He was asking her questions, wanting to know who was behind all of this. Was it John Yob? Was it Michael Waitley? Was it the RNC? He just couldn't comprehend that the grassroots had enough intelligence to do this thing and remove Kristina. He was flabbergasted. Dan Hartman completely did a disservice to the people that he supposedly represents, the Kristina group, cultists, disruptors, whatever. Then Kristina did have her deposition taken. And I believe that was last week or so. And in the deposition, I think she was asked if she had any computers. And she said, yes, I do. I do have a computer. And, she was asked to turn it over. And I don't think she had it with her at the deposition, but she did bring the computer to the Detroit office of Warner Norcross, and then
are we talking like a personal computer of hers or a state party computer?
No, it was a state party computer.
Oh, okay.
A state party computer. So
but she's still in possession of a state party computer after having an injunction against her from like a month plus ago, 2 months ago, 3 months ago. She still has a state party computer.
So that's right. So she turned it over. And gave it to the lawyers at Warner Norcross. And when they went on it to take a look at it, guess what?
I can't even guess. You tell me.
It was bleached. It was bleached.
Bleached, huh? Wow.
Every piece of information was removed from that computer. Not even Microsoft came up. Nothing. Now, here is the problem going forward for her, for Kristina. I'm just saying, this is for the law firm. This is for Mike Bishop. This is for Peter to decide. But
that's destroying evidence.
But as an attorney, she needs to be very careful. If I were Kristina, I would go in hiding, because there are some very serious problems with this. And it's my understanding that they are already out looking for an expert to testify on bleaching computers. That tells me there's something. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at MCL section 752796. Let's just take a look.
Hold on, read that for me again. MCL 792.
752796.
Okie doke. A person shall not use a computer program, computer system, or computer network to commit, attempt to commit, conspire to commit, or solicit another person to commit a crime.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
This section right here is pretty key. This is going to be the key section. I don't know where this is going to go. I don't know where this is going. I've just done my initial research and have taken a look at 752795.
Hold on. Let me go back a little farther.
A
person shall not intentionally and without authorization, by exceeding without authorization, as in like once you've lost your authorization because
there you go. She lost her authorization on January 6th.
Access requires access to be made to a computer program, computer system, or computer to acquire, alter, damage, delete, or destroy property, or otherwise use the service of a computer program, computer system, or computer network. Yeah, that is a problem. And the other thing too, and I don't know to what degree this came out in deposition or anything like that, or what they know, but when you say a computer was bleached, I think, now I know a little bit about computers. When you delete a file, you don't actually delete data. What you do is you delete a pointer to a file that therefore makes it so the computer thinks the thing is deleted, but that's how forensics can recover stuff on computers all the time. And if you want to really delete something, you need to actually overwrite that section of the disk. And actually, you really have to overwrite it over and over and over and over and over again to really bury it. And that takes real work. That takes very willful, intentional destruction of data.
Absolutely.
So if that's what if she just hit select all delete on her computer, no, bleach, that means that she probably had to hire, because I'm sure she didn't know any of this stuff. She had to hire somebody or got somebody who fancies himself an expert, who knows at least to get a file shredder or something like that. Maybe, who knows? Maybe give the whole Hillary Clinton treatment and dump actual bleach on it and hit it with a hammer and whatever else they do. But yeah, that's not good. And that's especially weird if she would bring that machine to a deposition.
She did not bring it to the deposition.
Oh, okay.
She when she was asked if she had it in her possession, she admitted, I believe, and I have not read that part of the transcript. I will be reviewing that on Monday or Tuesday this week, but she admitted to having an MRP computer. She agreed to deliver it to the Detroit office of Warner Norcross. And from Detroit, it was then delivered to John Lauterbach. So, and there were experts there at that time, supposedly experts, that were there when it was discovered that everything was gone. And nothing, not even the page came up for Microsoft, not even that. So you have section 752-795. And here's what's going to be interesting, because if you can, you have former employees that were fired by Kristina that clearly would be able to testify what was on those computers.
Yeah, one of the big stories was that Warren Carpenter just got into a Google Drive because Kristina's just like, here you go. Here's the Google Drive. I just showed you the entire thing. Here's all my files.
Yeah. So every program that was deleted potentially could be its own separate count. So what did she destroy? She destroyed the data in this file. She destroyed the data in this file. She destroyed the data in this file. So why is that important that these counts add up? Because in some of these statutes, a first offense is a misdemeanor. Well, a second offense, if you have more than one of these, it now becomes a felony. You're looking at some very serious problems. Then we have, let's see what else is a problem for her.
I think a lot of people don't understand politics is a contact sport. And when you, start messing, I think really these people just don't understand, like, a state party is like a big thing. Like, it's a big deal. You can't just show up and start destroying things when you don't get your way. It's not, we're not messing around.
Well, then there's 750.
That's the penal code. 750. What you got there? I know that.
All
number,
all of these I'm giving you based on research. They're all penal code.
All right.
750.377A.
Okay.
Let's take a look at that one.
Yep. Malicious destruction of property, MDOP. That's a felony.
Yep, that's a felony. And clearly, if you go down to 1I,
let's see here.
the amount of the destruction or injury, it's in the
Yep, there it is.
Or injury is 20,000 or more. No, I want the one that says 20,000 or more. It's up above. Yeah.
Oh, I okay. I is I see. 1A1.
Yeah. You know that data
that's a felony
on those computers is well worth over $20,000. I mean, you know
could
that.
Be.
You know
well,
that.
I don't know, but I bet that could be established.
I'm sure it is. Then we have the possibility of, and this one I thought was interesting because I did the research on it for the FEC. Found some very, there were some very interesting findings when the FEC statements and the state reports were being looked at, scrutinized, and as Dan Campbell called it, our internet sleuthing. It was very interesting to see that some people had given money, let's say at Mackinac, but yet they weren't showing up in the FEC filings. I thought that was interesting. That's what I thought. That was very interesting. How can you contribute to a regulated account for Mackinac and not have that contribution show up in an FEC filing?
Well, it could be a state donation, maybe.
No, it was for Mackinac. It all went into a regulated fund. So here is another issue that I think is also important. It's 18 U.S. Code. This is federal. 18 U.S. Code 1519. I remember why this one went into effect. I came from banking.
Destruction, alteration, or falsification of records in federal investigations and bankruptcy. Whoever knowingly alters, destroys, mutilates, conceals, covers up, falsifies, or makes a false entry in any record, document, or tangible object with the intent to impede, obstruct, or influence the investigation or proper administration of any matter within the jurisdiction of any department or agency of the United States or any case filed under Title 11 or in relation to or contemplation of any such matter or case shall be fined under this article, imprisoned for not more than 20 years of both. So federal felony to destroy documents relating to a federal investigation. Interesting.
Well, if there's a federal investigation into the FEC reports.
Didn't the FEC send them a letter saying we're kind of curious about what this all means? And why
doesn't mean they're not going to do an investigation.
Right. That's what I'm saying is the FEC already has reached out to Karamo's people to say, hey, your filings are all screwed up. What's going on here?
That doesn't mean they're not investigating in the background.
Right. I'm not suggesting that it does. I think maybe they did.
So when you destroy evidence, like it appears that has happened when that computer was turned over, there is a whole new host of problems facing Kristina Karamo. There's a whole new host of problems. She admitted that she had an MRP computer. She delivered it as she promised with nothing on it. And I am sure there will be people in the prior administration that will testify, if called, that they had a computer, they had data on it.
Yeah.
I saw
that computer
Kristina
probably has a number on it someplace.
I saw Kristina on her computer. Kristina sent me emails from her computer. Oh, by the way, here's some emails that Kristina sent me from her computer. And for her to say, my computer didn't have anything on it, she's got a problem. That's me. That's my theory. That's my personal opinion. I do not speak for anybody on the legal team. That's for them to decide, and Pete and Mike Bishop, how far they want to carry this. But
well, the other question I was wondering about this too, and this is kind of related to Kristina also, because we all know that Kristina did not take down the state party's website or the Twitter account. They continued to post on it. In fact, an email went out from the state party attacking the judge the day after the decision. Is there going to be any pursuit of contempt of court over that? Because there was a Hillsdale case recently where legal fees were issued as a contempt of court remedy for some of the things that were not done properly in that case. And I think, and I want to go back to this comment. Also, by the way, real quick on Rumble, Patricia says, Kristina is not committed to MIGOP. This is from near the beginning of the program. She's not committed to MIGOP. Her ego blinded her, plus severe lack of business experience. Yep. And then also going back to this other comment here, it's not going to stop until they're made to stop. And I think, it's wonderful that we've gotten this decision in the hearing for all the finality. Definitely, it's not Kristina's party anymore. We all kind of knew that. But is there going to be any follow through? And I understand. I completely understand. The party wants to move on. Resources are limited. We got to win in November. But there's all, and this comes up a lot when we're arguing with the Karamo people. It's always like, well, can't we just get along and move on? We got an election to win. It's like, well, yeah, we'd like to. The problem is, like, a body can't make peace with cancer. It's a fight to the death. And these people are not going to stop. They're not going to go away. They've made that clear. There's someone on Facebook stalking Dawn. One of her lieutenants, Samantha Strayer, posted on Twitter to one of our people on our county executive committee, it's not enough that you quit your county GOP. It's not enough. We're going to continue to hound you until you apologize. Like, they are not going to go away until they're made to stop. So a lot of us are wondering, can the party do anything about to really shut down this abuse once and for all, and to make it clear to the people that the longer they continue this, the worse it's going to be for them, not just for everybody?
Well, I think I'm going to answer that in a twofold manner.
That was a very long question, so take your time.
Well, I think the longer I sit back and observe these events, it becomes more and more clear to me that the operation to destroy the Michigan Republican Party is a long-term goal. I think they honestly felt that they could walk in, they were going to get in their new constitution, and she was going to rebuild the party with her delegates, and she was going to flip the state of Michigan from being a Republican party to a quasi-democratic party. Kristina is not a Republican by any stretch of the imagination. And she may have religious inklings, and she speaks through her Proverbs and Psalms. But other than that, she doesn't follow a Republican platform, and she clearly is not a conservative by any stretch of the imagination. This is an individual who was on a mission, whether it was her or those around her, to destroy, and I mean destroy, the Michigan Republican Party. With that kind of mentality, you're not going to back off. These people are committed to destroying the Michigan Republican Party. We're looking at years of dealing with this and weeding, like you said, this cancer out. Now, are they going to go after Kristina and others for what now are clear issues of contempt? Now that the temporary preliminary injunction has been converted to a permanent injunction, that's for the lawyers to decide. They will decide where this is going to go. They will decide the timetable. They will decide whether or not the resources are there to continue to move after Kristina. But every time her people go on Facebook and attack people and call them Satanists and tell them they need to apologize, that is a clear message. These people are not about the Republican Party at all.
Right.
And they should be feared because they're dangerous individuals.
Yeah, I have to agree, and I see Patty is disagreeing. She posted absentee ballots for the primary go out last week of June. Some people have primaries to win. We have no time for any more of this. We don't even have a state data director yet. Well, I mean, first off, for local races, the state party was never involved.
Yeah.
And state house and state house races, the state parties should not be involved in the primaries anyway. And yeah, I mean, they do need to have a state data director, but they can walk and chew bubble gum at the same time. And frankly, the state party's data has never been any good. I've never recommended any of my clients ever get the state party's data. So it'd be nice if they got it. I know that's true. I mean, I'm meeting with someone tomorrow who's running for an office that needs data. That's not going to be something they buy from a broker for a very high price because it's a tough district, but they still want to do the best they can. And the state data is better than nothing. So, I mean, it's worth having, but I mean, this is a serious thing. I mean, someone sent me this and, well, he knows who he is. He's in the chat. Maybe we'll have him on one of these days, but he got a letter from his county chair, who's a Karamo fanatic, just says, you're expelled from our party because of your conduct. That's all it says. No anything. No pursuant to a vote of the executive committee. No here. I mean, these people, we did a whole episode talking about their show trials. They're going even beyond that. Now they're just starting to expel people at will. I mean, they think they're dictators. They're crazy. And if we don't out-recruit them with precinct delegates, they're going to take over in the upcoming term. And they may cost Trump Michigan. That's them. That's them doing this, guys. And if they're an organized operation to destroy the party, as Maggie contends, as Scott McMahon has contended on the show previously, as I'm increasingly certain is what this is all about, because why wouldn't it be? This is a swing state in a presidential election year with Trump on the ballot. It would be shocking if the deep state was not involved in this. So how do we not confront that? I mean, this is another thing that conservatives have a problem with. When confronted with evil, their reaction is to turn the cheek or try to get on with their lives. And that's the story of why conservatives aren't in power, because they don't want it. It's not their nature to be confrontational, right? We all understand that, but you have to fight. If you don't fight, they win. And, we can form, like in my county, if we don't do battle with them, we can form a Republican club and raise money and support candidates and do the things that smart people do. But they're going to be the face of the party. They're going to be causing trouble in the media, causing legal issues, causing PR issues, sending their people to state convention, electing bozos for attorney general and secretary of state, and for state Supreme Court, and for university boards. And they're going to cost elections. I mean, that's not a fair alternative. The reality is they're the invaders. They need to be driven out. We have to take a stand and defend our house here.
Well, one of my predictions is when I was talking to another individual about the computer issue is we'll never see those computers. Never.
Yeah.
Absolutely never. And I think there's a reason why. If I've been in employment, and anytime I've found another job, the first thing, they said, well, what's your password? Hand over your password. It's a very neutral exchange of information. Yeah. Here's my password. Here's my files. No big deal, and you move on because it's not my property. These people have withheld those computers, and they've done it deliberately. And I think the reason is because if we saw their computers and went through them, we would be able to connect the dots to the people that they've been communicating with that are responsible for engineering and strategically manipulating this whole takedown of the Michigan Republican Party. That's why you will never get those computers back, because those computers are the code to what's going on. We will never see them, ever. That's why Kristina's computer had nothing on it. We'll never see them. They will all play dumb. I don't know where it went.
Yeah.
I can't find it. Well, we know it was assigned to you, so the most you can get from them is to say that computer was worth $1,500. We don't have the computer that was assigned to you, so write us a check for $1,500.
Yeah.
But you'll never see the computers because they will tell the story.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I hope the party investigates this and does all that they can. You know, I think they need to get prosecutors involved because clearly crimes have been committed.
Yeah.
And certainly this is, and that, you know, they don't need to spend millions of donor dollars pursuing this privately when they have clearly and very openly committed what are felonies and potentially federal and state felonies. Marcus TC on YouTube says, the only organization that should be allowed to recruit delegates for the Michigan Republican Party is the Michigan Republican Party. Change state bylaws so that no delegates recruited through outside organizations are accepted. Well, Marcus, anyone can file to become a precinct delegate if you're a registered voter, and it doesn't matter what organization recruits you. That's not on the paperwork. And I as a freedom of speech, freedom of assembly issue, I disagree. I think people should be able to recruit people to become delegates. I encourage everybody watching right now to recruit delegates. The filing date for precinct delegates has gone by, but there's still lots of vacancies for write-in candidates. Guys, I absolutely talk to your county clerk, get the list of who's filed, see where there's precincts with vacancies in your county, and start finding people. Talk to people you know personally and say, hey, you know, Republican voters like this person who contacted me is in a rural county, probably in a Republican county. Probably a lot of local elected officials are Republicans there. Get them filed as precinct delegates. Get them to get their supporters to file as precinct delegates. Don't let these psychos take over our party because their job is to destroy it. That's their mission, guys. There's no unifying with them. Jay says, what's the deadline to file as a write-in? The day before the election. I think maybe even the day of the election, actually. You can file it with your, like, literally, you can, the best way to do it is to go to your local clerk's office as early as you can. But I think there's actually a way. There's, I believe, a way to do it at your polling place. You can actually ask them to count your vote, but
do
don't
an
do it that way.
affidavit of identity. Yeah.
Yeah. File as a write-in candidate with your city or township clerk is the way to do that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there you go. Mark Ashley Price has actually made several comments. He says, I hope Hassan Nemi to be the next state chair. Such a nice man, nice young man to be such. I don't know if he's got the fundraising background, but seems like a great guy.
He's a good guy. He's a good guy.
Yeah. I mean, I hate to say this though, but the state chair needs to be more than just a good guy. It has to also be someone that can raise millions of dollars by making phone calls. And that's not many people, folks. I mean, I know we all had high hopes for Kristina when she came in. The fact is, you know, I am not qualified to run for state chair. And I actually have worked in politics for many years. Mm-hmm. You have to have ins into a society of people that will give millions of dollars for the Republican Party. And if you're not that person, sorry, you're not qualified because the party does need money. They can do a lot without money, and God knows they don't spend money wisely all the time. But you can't be the chair if you can't raise money, period. One of the things I got a big kick out of in this hearing transcript from February is, I think it was Hartman going on about what a smashing success the Mackinac Conference was. Yeah, right. The Mackinac Conference normally raises millions of dollars, and this year this past year they certainly did not. Kelly Powell says, "Can we talk about the Michigan House races?" Yes, but I think, Kelly, probably not tonight. I think I'm going to have to do another makeup stream during this week because there's topics I know we can't get to. Maggie, we should go back to the cold opening because I want to get your thoughts on that Vivek theory in a moment. The signature challenges story is developing. All the U.S. Senate candidates and the Republicans that have been challenged by Mark Elias's law firm, as has Adam Hollier's campaign for U.S. House against Sri Thanadar been challenged. And there's watchdog news. We've got some crazy bills in the legislature. Tell you what, guys, promise you on Tuesday we will have a stream and cover all the topics we've missed. So we will come back to it. Paula Necky says, by the way, Paula, I hope you're feeling better. Paula's in the hospital recently with heart issues. I think it was heart issues. Hope everything's well, Paula. Deadline for write-in candidates, declaration of intent for precinct delegates, 4 p.m. on August 2nd. That's for filing with your clerk. I do think there's actually even later than that process, but don't put it off to the last second, guys. Recruit write-ins now. Anyway. So yeah, we'll do the cold open before the good to hear Paula's doing better. We will do the bit about the cold open at the very, very end, but let's get back to anything more we want to discuss about the about the Karamo stuff.
Well,
So there's no trial on the 12th. That's been canceled. So
yeah,
go ahead,
so
man.
there's no reason for the trial, and sometime I believe either this week or next week there'll be an order entered because the judge did give his ruling from the bench. There will be an order that will be entered that will basically say that the motion for summary disposition was plaintiff's motion for summary disposition was granted, and basically say this is a final order, and then maybe a couple of other 1 or 2 sentences in there, and then Hartman will be free then to sit down and take this to the Court of Appeals. What a joke that will be. That will be
They'll be denied.
Yeah, you already know it's going to be denied because the judge was so thorough, and the witnesses were so good on the witness stand in terms of providing the information needed. And quite frankly, an appeal takes at least a year. I worked at the Court of Appeals early in my life, my legal life, and it'll take at least a year. He's not going to get an emergency hearing on this. There's no emergency. The Michigan Republican Party is operating just fine without Kristina Karamo and the traveling circus around her, and things are okay. So all the Court of Appeals has to do is just sit back and read the transcripts and determine whether or not the permanent injunction was appropriately entered based on the summary proceedings. So if you have a year, it'll be maybe next April or May before we hear it. By that time, there'll be a new state chair. The issue comes moot. So if I were sitting on the Court of Appeals, I would push this out to next spring, and then just issue an order. The issue's moot. There is a new chair, and we don't need to hear this. It's a waste of time. But hey, Karamo, Hartman may be working for free on this. Who knows?
Yeah,
he's lost everything else.
He's working for free apparently. Because,
well,
according to him, there's a great bargain for the state party, according to Dan Hartman, that he was working for free all that time.
Well, he was losing for free. I mean, he lost. I mean, everything he touched, he lost. So, but it'd be interesting because his next court challenge, I believe, is going to be around June. I don't know, June 16th, June 17th. I think in the Hillsdale case, it's starting to kick up again. Is that there is a possible motion?
Case, you mean?
No, this is Hillsdale. Remember, Kristina is in contempt of the court's order down in Hillsdale. So there is now a proceeding to convert the contempt hearing into a judgment. So she's looking at the judgment that she owes the city of Detroit, $56,000 or whatever, between her and her election minions. They lost that case too. I forgot about that one. And now she's going to Hillsdale, where she's already in contempt. So I'm sure Hartman will be at that case arguing why the judge's decision to award the lawyer's attorney fees should not be reduced to a judgment. So, and once it's reduced to a judgment, they can start collection action against her. So that means pull her in, find out where her income is coming from. So you've got that going on. So it is what it is.
Good stuff.
Yeah, it's tough to be Kristina.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, Maggie, we've been going for more than an hour. If you have a moment still, because we do have the transcript from your cross-examination, if we might do a brief reenactment, if you could humor us for that, just again to drive home the point to people that this case is not what Kristina Karamo's people made it out to be, but it was actually just absolutely bizarre. Can we just read through this for a moment or two? Can you read this on your screen as you see it here?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I'll play I'll play Don Campbell. Here, hold on. Let me change my name here. Hold on. All right. Now I'm Donald D. Campbell. There we go. And here we are. Ms. Kurzweil, you're not aware of the secretary vetting these petitions, are you?
And then my question is, what do you mean by vetting?
Okay. I'll ask. So you don't understand what the word vet means in the context of my sentence?
No, I don't.
Okay. Do you know if anybody examined these petitions for purposes of determining whether the people, when they signed them, were proper paid, dues-paying members? Do you know if that was done?
Yes, that was done.
Okay. By whom?
That was done by me.
Okay. So you weren't aware of the secretary doing it, correct?
No, I don't. No, she was not providing the information we needed. So that's why we went to the FEC and other documents.
So this all, okay, let's try this again. When the petitions were submitted to the secretary, are you aware of whether the secretary had the opportunity to review them prior to the vote?
I think I said no.
Yes. No, you said yes, she could have.
Oh, yes, she could have. Yes. Okay.
Okay, could have if she saw them when they were sent, right?
Correct.
And if she doesn't see them when they're sent, then she can't, right? You'd agree with me. That's pretty obvious, right?
Well, if she didn't open her mail.
That's the standard cross tactic there. You'd agree that this, you'd agree with me that, right? And it's like, no. Okay. Well, people do stuff on the day, right? I mean, did you call her and say, hey, by the way, we just sent these petitions?
No, I did not.
Okay. This was a procedural advantage you were trying to get by the late submission of the petitions, right?
No, I don't think so at all.
Okay. Why weren't these attached to the letter that asked for the special meeting on December 2nd?
Well, because at that time, there was no requirement in the bylaws that they be attached.
Okay. Now you ask me the question. That's how this goes here.
So why would you do that? He was clueless. He just was clueless.
This is so ridiculous. Well, you also didn't have the number of signatures necessary in order to call this the question as of the date of the request for the special meeting, correct?
I don't know specifically when that time period was in which the number of signatures arrived. That I don't know. I was just constantly.
So when you vetted these, you vetted them to see if there were dues paid. You didn't vet them for the idea of, given the date that they were signed and how many were signed as of December 2nd versus how many were signed afterwards.
See, I got to interject here. He didn't understand the process. So I said, I didn't hold all these petitions during the process. They were held by another individual. I didn't know. That's a true statement. I had no idea.
Yeah. Okay. So then you say so they could be confidential.
Well, they could be confidential.
But they're in a time that you went through them. You just told me I went through them to make sure all the dues had been paid. Right? Did I misunderstand that?
It happened on a piecemeal basis.
Okay. So have you seen all these petitions together?
Yes.
Okay. And did you use the petitions in any manner to create your spreadsheet that you did?
Yes.
Yeah, of course. Okay. So you actually looked at them and
I looked at them. So of course I did.
There's actually a comment on that spreadsheet when I put the dates on when I vetted these people.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
That's how I got the data.
Yeah. We do these. We have, whip lists and spreadsheets for things. That's what we kind of do in politics.
Yeah.
Okay. So now you say, if you look at Exhibit 24, now I'm answering my questions here. Well, does it have to? Let me get to Exhibit 24. That would be a good idea.
Yeah. 24, actually. Yeah.
You lead me now through this. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, I did. I had to tell him what exhibit it was. I said, yeah, 24, actually. That's right. The number of the exhibit.
Give me a moment so I can get to where you are, okay? Let me see if I can find this. I'm now where you are. Go ahead.
And I say Exhibit 24 actually has a column that says, did they sign a petition? So you could go through those pages and quickly ascertain who signed the petition. It's right there.
And you were able to gather that information because you had the petitions, right?
Correct.
Terrific. You made this spreadsheet, right?
Yes. Right. Yes. I was part of it. Yes.
So you got to pick what went in and what didn't go in, right?
Well, you pick your data points.
Yeah.
It is the data points on what was voluminous paper was being reduced to information in there. Let me explain that a little bit on that exhibit 24. He didn't understand it. I think Jennifer Standifer understood it because it gave the date of the payment that we had found. But this was a summary that was being made that summarized volumes and volumes of information. So volumes of petitions. For me to bring in the FEC report of all these people would have been voluminous. The Mackinac report, I think that's 140 pages. So all I did was provide a very accurate summary, and it clearly tested in court to be 100% accurate, I believe. Including all the proxies, who was the proxy on January 6th, who was the proxy on January 20th. Those names were in there, so you could see, and it was all organized by district, district 1 through 13 or whatever. You could see the state committee person, whether or not their dues were paid, whether or not they were present. So it was a good table that really never got countered by anybody.
Yeah.
So that's why I picked the data point.
If they disputed it, you could have had to go into it, but they didn't, so you didn't have to, which is nice.
Yeah, I didn't have to.
Pointless. But so this is all this, and this is the essence of this 12 hours of this stuff is them arguing over this minutia. Like they're going to try to get you on some like little slip up, and it just never happens.
It never happened. Yeah, it just never happened. So
all right. So I was going to try to get us to the end where you make that. Let's obviously not, because this goes on forever. But that ends with I'm just doing my job as a lawyer, and you're like, you're doing a great job there.
You're doing a good job.
Yeah.
And actually, he was a nice person. He was nice to me on the witness stand. So he was just doing his job, but I think he was limited in his abilities because I think there were probably some very, very strong constrictions on the Kristina team in not being forthright in giving him the information that he needed to do his job. That's my opinion. That's my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, a lawyer can only do as good as their case is.
You're only as good as your client.
Yeah. All right. So I guess we'll end the show where we started with that comment from Vivek. And by the way, folks, the Washtenaw County GOP is going to be having their Lincoln Day dinner on June 27th. We already had to postpone it once because our first date was going to be like right before the Turning Point USA conference with Donald Trump coming. So we were like, okay, that's not going to work for us. So our Lincoln Day dinner in Washtenaw County is going to be on debate night. We're going to have our whole program and then a debate watch party at the Lincoln Day. So look for an announcement from us. I'm sure I'll promote it on our show too to sell more tickets for it. That's going to be a lot of fun. But what do you make of Vivek's theory that they're just testing the waters with Biden? I don't think this is. I've heard a lot of conservatives and Republicans talking about this now. They're like, oh yeah, they're going to trust me. They're still going to replace Biden. I think that door closed a while ago. I don't think they can do that. But what do you think?
I don't think Biden's going anywhere. I think the fix is in. I really do. I think my thing is when I heard this was, what does Biden know that we don't? It more to the detriment of Donald Trump than to Biden. I'm not quite sure why Trump is so intent on debating Biden at this point in June. I think I would have waited a little bit more for some momentum after the July convention, but it is what it is. I got the impression it all just kind of got thrown together at the last minute, like just out of nowhere. Biden agreed, Trump challenged Biden to debate, Biden agreed, and we're like, okay, we're doing it. So, and I've seen a lot of people talking about the fact that they're doing this without going through there's a commission on presidential debates. And they're saying, oh, the reason why they're not doing that is to box out RFK Jr. I think that was probably going to happen anyway.
But the Commission on Presidential Debates was always kind of a joke anyway. It was very oriented towards the power structure to begin with. So I mean, that was an antiquated system that I'm glad it's gone anyhow. I think it's unrelated, just a coincidence. But yeah, I think people are saying, "Oh, trust me, they're going to put Gretchen Whitmer in as the Democrats' nominee." No, guys. I understand your concerns, but I wouldn't worry about it.
No, I think he's going to have earplugs in. I think there's going to be somebody whispering in his ears. It's clear that the man does not have an ability to coherently piece together pretty articulate arguments that are based in fact. He has to pull a lot of factual information. You know, he's going to be fed every question. He'll have a prepared answer ready to go. I think that's pretty obvious, at least to me. I think when you look at him, if you talk to people in the medical fields, they will tell you that individuals who have early cognitive issues or early dementia have a more difficult time with it in the evenings when it gets dark. So I was a little bit surprised to see that this was going to be an evening debate.
Yeah, they'll probably just shift the sleep schedule around.
It's not good for for the cognitive condition that is got him a little hamstrung here. That's why you don't see him that much in the evenings.
I think he'll get thrashed by Trump. The media will say Biden won anyway, but of course, what else are they going to do? So
I just don't know what the advantage is to Trump. I really don't. But you know, I'm not on the campaign strategy team, so I'm sure there's a strategy somewhere.
Yep. Well, I guess we'll see. It's going to be quite the night. Obviously, I will not be live streaming the debate because I'll be doing my own event that night. But it's going to be. I'm sure we'll do some kind of stream about that. And again, folks.
Well, you know
Tuesday.
what? Real quick.
Yeah.
Vivek is going to be at the Livingston County Lincoln Day dinner this Thursday, May 23rd.
Oh, cool.
So he might tip his hand a little bit more and give us a little bit more information on why he thinks this is the end game for Biden. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I'll try to get to that. All right. And Tuesday we'll have a stream. We'll catch up on some other stuff. Democrats in Lansing, a lot of crazy stuff. They now have a bill in there to allow convicted felons to serve on juries.
Oh,
and they also passed their budget bills last week. There was a whole pile of them. I saw those sail through. Tons of Republican amendments in the Senate all got shot down unanimously every time because Democrats don't have any free thinking at all. Operation Watchdog is totally updated, so you can see all the new bills there. And again, Tuesday, we'll do another update on state politics. Maggie, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It has been a pleasure. And thank you for the scoop. We will have some fun with that tomorrow in our email blast. And guys, thank you all for tuning in. Of course, we will have our regular stream next Sunday as well. And as I said, Tuesday also. As always, guys, thanks for all you for liberty. And Maggie, if you've got any of those case docs, you can send me an email. I'll post them in the description too.
Okay.
So there we go. All right, guys. As always, thanks for all you for liberty. Get your friends filed as precinct delegates. Until next time, peace out.